Long ago, when the world was bright and full of stories, an evil wizard gained the power to touch the face of God. Narrativa, goddess of stories and weaver of our world, banished him to the void, but not before he stole a piece of her divine essence. With this newfound power, the wizard lay a dread curse upon all the world, the Glyph Purge, which struck from the minds of all mortals the knowledge of how to read and write. Now, all that stand between the Isle of Meotia and an age of endless ignorance are the bards, who tell stories of distant lands, exotic creatures, and brave heroes. This is one such tale.
Ruger Firehide. You sit astride your faithful steed as it plods along a dirt road flanked by the low brush of the dry plains you call your home. A sudden wind from the east blows grit in your eyes and throws tumbleweeds across your path. The sun sinks in the western sky behind you, turning the horizon in angry red. Well, except for the sky to the north, the slice of sky over the Badlands. It's never quite the color it's supposed to be. It glares a snarling shade of purple down at you, like it's torn between dawn and dusk. You've roved these plains for years now, traveling from town to town, doing what work needs to be done, tracking bandits, finding rustled cattle. But no matter how many nights you spend sleeping out here, the Badlands never did sit right with you. The ground there is all blasted craters, deeper than 3 men standing, and jagged spires of razor-sharp crystal that gleam in the night. No beast ever seems to go in or out. Between the strange sounds and the stranger smells of the place, you've learned to keep your distance. Nothing in there for a simple lawman like you. Soon, the town comes into view. Pickers Run, your destination. Just a handful of squat buildings straddling the dirt path folks out here consider a road. It's not much to look at, but it's an oasis after being out in the wide open for so long. The few folks still out this late nod as they pass, hurriedly shutting themselves into their homes. The tavern looms large over the rest of the buildings. It's damn near the only reason anyone would come to a town this close to the Badlands. 2 stories of splintery wood so drafty it nearly whistles in the breeze. A rough hide nailed over the door names the place, the Skinned Coyote. Next to the door is pinned another item of note, a scrap of red cloth waving in the breeze. The crimson threads catch the last rays of the dying sunlight and seem to beckon you. What do you do?
I snag the red cloth and stretch it out, take a look at it, and sigh to myself. Well, Cole, it looks like we have another man to hunt.
Your horse whinnies in agreement and docilely stands at attention outside of the tavern.
I tether his horse to the horse stand, which I assume exists outside the tavern, and then
Oh, absolutely. You can't have a western town without a horse tether, or whatever they're called. I'm sure there's an actual name for that.
There's no doubt there's a name for it, but I don't know what it is. Even though I've
Me
played
neither.
my fair share of Red Dead Redemption, I can't remember what it's called. And then I stroll into the tavern, or saloon, as it were.
Thank you. You know what? You're right. Saloon's better. The floorboards groan under your feet as you enter. The place is empty. Tables and chairs spaced out over the splintery floor. A few lanterns hanging from the ceiling. Their flames waving crazily in the very drafty main room of the Skinned Coyote. The only person in here is old Charlie, the bartender. A portly old man behind a filthy apron who is cleaning a dirty glass with an even dirtier rag. He looks up at you and says, "Got a message for you, Firehide. Runner came through earlier today. Looks like Old Tess by the scrapyard lost her boy.
I'm sorry to hear it, Charlie. But before I hear any further, I'll take 2 fingers of whiskey in a neat glass.
Only for you, Firehide. And old Charlie reaches down under the bar and takes an immaculately clean glass, lays it on the bar, and pours 2 fingers of whiskey. He slides it down the bar to you.
Charlie, this here's to wealth and well-being. And then I shoot it back in one go.
Here's hoping, Firehide.
Now that that's dispensed with, tell me about Tess and her boy.
Well, you'll have to get the full story from her, but Roy was in here, that's Tess's boy, a couple nights ago, drunk as a skunk, going on and on about some treasure he found out there in the Badlands. You know how it is in Pickers Run. Only reason this town exists is to give shelter to all the scrappers that try to take whatever treasure they can find in that blasted land. He was going on and on about it, and some drifter, new to town, seemed real interested. Took him up on his offer to go out and try to find this grand treasure he apparently came across. They went out into the Badlands some 3 days ago. Ain't nobody ever seen or heard from him since.
Well, Charlie, if you're telling me this quest of mine is going to lead me into the Badlands, then I'm going to need 2 more fingers of whiskey from you.
Let's go ahead and make it 4. Tess is, well, she's real angry. I wouldn't want you going in there unarmed.
I appreciate that, Charlie.
Charlie pours you 2 more glasses and slides them down the bar to you. How's the trails been? Any trouble out there?
Charlie, these here are the freeholds. Trouble is part of the landscape. It's a rough road, but it's one I am happy to take. Now let's tip these back and I can go say hello to poor Tess.
From your lips to God's ears. And he pours himself a glass and takes a shot as well. Until next time, Firehide.
I tip my hat at old Charlie and then leave the saloon.
Cole is standing there patiently as you exit the bar. All of the denizens of Pickers Run have returned to their homes and shut them tightly. The homes around here are built of wood scavenged from wherever they could find it, and bits and baubles recovered from the Badlands. You see details, strange bits of metal, weird, overly fancy doorknobs, a weather vane here or there that seems incredibly out of place in this relatively desolate landscape. The people here like to take things from as far into the Badlands as they're willing to go and use them to accent their homes. Pickers Run is so named because this is where the pickers run to when they're done scavenging from the Badlands. It's the town farthest north and closest to the Badlands that can be considered inhabited by friendly folk. They've all locked themselves in to guard themselves from whatever might be lurking out there in the night. You know that Tess oversees a fairly sized scrapyard a few miles outside of town and uncomfortably closer to the Badlands than you normally get.
Well, Cole, I hate to break it to you, old friend, but it looks like once more we're heading into the Badlands. So before we do that, why don't you enjoy a nice oat cake? And I feed the horse a little bit from the saddlebags, and then mount and start heading towards Tessa's scrapyard.
Yeah, Cola shakes his head and stamps his foot when he hears you say the Badlands, but he perks right up as soon as you give him that oat cake, and you soon swing to the saddle and ride out to Tessa's place. It takes you about an hour to get there. The roads at this point are just small game trails through the low scrub brush. It's barely a road at all. These are not well worn paths. And eventually you get to the ramshackle jumble of metal shards, old tubes, and strangely industrial shapes that encompasses and makes up Tessa's scrapyard. A small fence of finely wrought wire, sort of net that is held up by posts at regular intervals, surrounds the place like nothing you've ever seen. The house itself is a small lean-to that is butted up against a gigantic pile of the weirdest stuff you've ever seen. It looks like garbage made out of fancier metal than you've ever come across. There are brass tubes, strange silvery pipes, there's wheels and cogs and flanges, stuff that you don't even know what it does, all piled up against her lean-to, but you do see smoke curling out of the small chimney poking out from the top of her small lean-to shack, and there is a light glowing in the one window facing you by the door.
I dismount Cole and take a quick survey of the scrapyard, and then I reach into my pouch and pull out my cigarette case. I pluck one self-rolled cigarette from it, as well as a bundle of matches, and I take a good long time before striking a match, lighting a cigarette, and taking a long drag. After a second drag, I toss the cigarette to the side and march up to the door and give it 3 solid raps.
As the bluish-gray smoke of your cigarette curls up into what is now a fully darkened night sky, you cross over the entrance to the scrapyard and up to the front porch of Tessa's lean-to shack. Roll me a reflex saving throw as you step up onto her porch.
12.
You step solidly down onto her porch, and her porch gives a little bit. You think it's a loose board, but it is actually a pressure plate. As your boot pushes it down, you hear a terrifying metallic click and a twang, and a crossbow bolt flashes right next to your face, the fletching tickling your ear, and slams itself into the front door. You turn around and you see there was some sort of crossbow contraption that was seemingly perfectly aimed at your head. At this commotion of this thick, powerful crossbow bolt slamming into the door of Tessa's shack, you hear, "What? What the hell was that? God, by the Narrativa, damn it!" You hear a couple running steps, and then the door flies open, revealing Tess, a tiny, shrunken old woman with fierce eyes peering out of a pair of spectacles that make her eyes look 3 times larger. They have a bunch of extra lenses cocked at different intervals, and she looks up at you through them and says, "Gah, Firehide, it's about time you got here. I always need to adjust the trigger on that crossbow. Gah. One of these days I'll get it right.
You nearly took my head, Tess. I gotta be honest, I did not appreciate it.
I'm an old woman, and I live in a dangerous part of the island. I have to defend myself, don't I? All my beautiful treasures here, anyone would want to steal them. You should have checked. That's on you.
Well, Tess, I'm not here to argue your narrativa given rights, but I'll tell you, I'll not ask for another crossbow bolt aimed at my head. I'm here about your boy. Now tell me what there is to know so that Cole and I can get back on the trail.
She changes her demeanor at that point. She kind of softens a little bit. Well, yeah, that's why I needed you to come by. That's why I sent out the red flag. Come in. Come in.
I step in.
Cool. You step inside, and you see a surprisingly cozy dwelling. There is... Tess is not a very large woman, and this place is sized appropriately for her. You see a small iron stove in the corner, the chimney peeking through the roof of the lean-to that is fitfully burning. There's a stove built into the top of it, and she seems to be frying up some bacon at the moment. It is popping and sizzling fitfully. There's a few bits of furniture that seem to be constructed out of some of the scrap in her from her scrapyard. They look like you can sit in them, but there's weird angles and accents and flanges. Some of them you're not exactly sure how you're supposed to sit in them. You also see a young man in her shack, a young man seated on one of these very strange chairs with a blanket over his legs. He looks red-eyed and worried, and he is hunched around a cup of steaming coffee and rocking back and forth.
I reflexively scratch at my stubble beard for a moment, and then turn to the boy. I don't believe you and I have been introduced. The name's Firehide. And you are?
My name is William. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm so happy you're here. Are you here to find Roy? Are you here to find my Roy?
Well, I can't rightly say that he's yours, but yes, sir, I am indeed here to find the missing boy, Roy.
Well, if he's not mine, I'm certainly his. Forgive me, Roy's my husband. I'm William. I'm Roy's husband.
Tess says, yes, he's been worried sick, even more worried than I've been since Roy's been away. I told him it's probably fine. Roy's always gallivanting about in the Badlands. He thinks he can find a treasure so great he'll, I don't know, fix our lives for us. The damned fool. But William here has been so sick with worry that figured we should put the call out.
William says, I can't believe you can be so cavalier about this, Tess. It's all Roy. He's been missing. He's never been gone this long before. He knows better than to be out in the Badlands this late. There's horrible things out there. The dead walk out there.
Well, worry not, William. I am, despite my better instincts and intuitions, quite familiar with the Badlands. So tell me, old Charlie says that Roy came to keep company with an out-of-towner. What do you know about him?
It's a her, actually, for starters. Some strange woman wandered into town. Someone none of us had ever seen before.
We get her type sometimes around here, people that hear of the potential wealth to be found in the Badlands that want to come to Picker's Run to set up shop before they go out in search of whatever they can find. But she seemed different, odd, really. It started about a week ago. All right, Roy went out into the Badlands. He said he found something of incredible value, something that could set us up for life, something that even the lore masters at the College of Everspring would want in their collection, something incredible, priceless, one of a kind. Of course, he wouldn't tell us what it was. He wanted it to be a surprise.
Classic Roy and his sense of drama.
I know, it's one of the things I love about him, but anyway, he went out there to try and find it again, but when he came across the same spot, he was assailed by some ghouls. Horrific, shambling, undead abominations. They rose up from the ground and nearly took his head off. He rode as fast as he could back here with the ox and cart, and ever since then he's been despondent. I'm in no shape to go out there with him, and, well, neither is Tess. I could weather it better than you can. Listen, let's not fight. We're talking to Mr. Firehide here. So, he came back, he was despondent. We couldn't assist him in his quest, so he went to the tavern. He got drunk at the Skinned Coyote. He bemoaned not being able to return with this treasure, and this drifter took an interest, asked him questions, lots and lots of questions. Roy always could drink me under the table. After a few rounds, I had to wander home and, well, be ill. But he stayed at the tavern with her, and they decided to strike out the very next morning. They went out together with the ox and cart, and great plans to secure this treasure before anyone else could. I've never seen this woman before in my life, and she seems off. There's a strange glint to her eye. I don't know how to put my finger on it. She's crazy, is what he's saying. She's a nut bar. Like, I don't know how else to say it, Tess. You don't have to be so mean. No, this woman is crazy, and she's going to get my son killed. I can be rude. All right. Just let's calm it down. So that's the story.
And this drifter, can you describe her?
Oh God, let's should have short hair, done up in braids. She had small, sort of beady eyes, just crazy glint to them. She had piercings in one of her ears, 6 of them, rings, all in a row. These gold rings, all in a row on one of her ears.
And
I'm sorry, I was very drunk. That's the best I can do.
I understand. Old Charlie pours it thick, don't he?
Oh, don't get me started. And William holds his stomach.
Well, let me ask you this. This drifter, does she hail from the freeholds, or is she a resident of the Springdale Forest, or hell, does she serve the Iron Shogun?
Well, she wasn't a dwarf or an elf. She was a human, from what I could tell. But I've certainly never seen her before. She didn't seem like a freeholder, though honestly, there's no real way to tell. She just seemed, well, Tess has it right, she seemed crazy. On and on, question after question. Where was it? What did it look like? How deep in the Badlands was it? Was it really what he said it was? tried to get more information, but Roy was so dead set on it being a surprise. Wouldn't tell us anything more.
And how long ago was it that your boy Roy and this drifter did depart?
It's been 3 days. He's never been gone this long. We don't go that far into the Badlands. Well, William, cover your ears. It's suicide. There's nothing but wild magic, geysers of smoke and fire. There's the dead walk. It is horrific out there. The only reason I've been able to acquire all this is because I go in short, direct bursts, find an old building, an outhouse, and strip what we can. No one goes that deep into the Badlands. Not if they want to come back out. That's why we're so worried.
Well, Tess, you need not worry anymore. Firehide is here, and he will find your boy. But, is there anything else that I need to know?
William says, there is one thing. I don't know if it's useful, but you have to know how much Roy means to us. And William throws the blanket that was covering him in a chair to the side, and you see that his legs stop at the knee. Both of them. After that are 2 artificial legs. They seem to be made out of sort of a mismatch of a bunch of different kinds of metal riveted into shape to look like legs. He firmly grips the arms of the chair he's in and pushes himself up to his feet and takes 2 surprisingly firm steps towards you. These were Roy's work. He whipped them together out of scrap one day. I had an accident and lost my legs. I was despondent. I was lost. I thought I'd never walk again, and then I met Roy, and he helped me find my feet. We need you to bring him back to us, sir. Please. He's dead set on finding some great treasure that will buy our way out of here, buy us some place in Everspring, and he wants to take away all of our troubles. I don't know if he's been conned or if he's in danger, but just please bring him back to us.
Listen to me, son, and you listen closely. If there's one truth of this world, it is such. Firehide always gets his man. I will find your man, Roy, and I will bring him back to you in whatever state I can. But rest assured, I will find him. And I tip my hat to the both of them. I cast a quick glance at the fireplace, and then I stroll out the door.
All right, your boots click on the floorboards as you make your way out into the night. The stars are shining fitfully over the plains of the freeholds, except, of course, the sky to the north. This close to the Badlands, they all flicker like fireflies. No steady light coming from any one of them. Cole sits patiently, waiting for your return. He gives you a knowing nod as you approach and stamps the ground in a resigned fashion.
You said it, boy. There's no time like the present. If you're ready for it, let's head to the Badlands.
All right, so you head out under the twinkling starlight into the Badlands. The trail is not hard to follow at first. The freeholds is on the plains. They are dusty, and the loose dirt holds prints fairly well. From what you gathered from Tess and William, Roy went out there with his ox and his ox cart. Not exactly difficult tracks to follow. If you would like to attempt to pursue Roy and his mystery drifter companion, roll me a survival check to track your quarry.
Hot damn. So that is a 26.
Holy crow!
18 plus 8.
So, Ruger Firehide, you set out to track your quarry, the missing Roy, and his drifter companion, and you find the trail immediately, and you follow it as if it were written by the gods themselves. There is a clear, well-pressed track from these cartwheels and the oxen's hooves that go directly north into the Badlands. The separation between the plains of the Freeholds and the Badlands proper is not a sharp one. It's not starkly... there's not a stark and set line. But as you get farther north, the low scrub brush, the tumbleweeds, and the critters, the salamanders and cicadas that you are used to fall away and eventually are completely gone. After an hour or two, you find yourself in a eerie quiet without the normal sounds of nighttime wildlife around you at all. The silence is deafening for a moment until you start to hear other noises. Every once in a while, as the wind whips around you, blowing in seemingly every direction in fits and starts, you get a few notes of music here, a strange, unearthly wail there, always coming from a different direction, and always just barely at the edge of your ability to hear it. And you soon find yourself surrounded by the alien and inhospitable terrain of the Badlands. These cart tracks weave around giant craters, these rubble-strewn holes in the ground that mark the land like pockmarks, and these jagged, sharp spikes of crystal, of jet black stone, of various other substances, some of which you can't even identify. The early stages of your tracking are fairly easy, as these cart tracks can only maneuver on the widest of paths, but a good 5 hours of traveling deeper and deeper and deeper into the Badlands, you see the first sign of trouble. You come to a small rise, which is really this strange wave of earth, as if someone had reached down and pinched a solid chunk of earth and brought it up. As you top this rise, you can see before you, about 100 feet distant, tied off to this strange metallic cluster of limbs that looks like may have been a tree at some point. You see an oxen tied off with a cart still harnessed to it. There does not seem to be anyone around it.
I take a deep breath, and then I do a quick but careful survey of the land.
Roll me a spot check.
15.
You do not see anything especially untoward. You don't see any movement besides the oxen. You don't see any traces of any other living thing around you.
Yeah, Cole. And I trot up to the ox.
Cole whinnies nervously and moves forward, taking you up to the side of the ox cart. The ox looks hungry. It's chewed almost halfway through the thick leather strap that's been used to anchor it to this tree. And as you come near it, it nervously looks at you wide-eyed and jerks its head violently to the side as if to try to get away from you.
Ho, boy, ho. And I reach into my saddlebag and pull out another oatcake and attempt to handle this animal.
Go ahead and roll me a handle animal check as you try to calm this panicked beast.
16.
That's very good. You dismount, pull out a treat from your pack, and slowly approach, one hand out, and making calming, shushing noises and gestures. You're able to feed this oxen an oat cake, and it calms down. No longer shies away from you or tries to run. You can see that the wagon, the cart strapped to it, has been strapped to it since it was left here. It looks like it's been here for a couple days. It's hungry, it's panicked, its skin is starting to get a little worn from the straps of the cart, and it does not look happy or comfortable. You can tell it's been here for a while.
I do a quick survey of the immediate area, checking to see if there's any visible tracks or sign of struggle, and I also take the time to check the contents of the cart.
Yeah, roll me a search check as you take your keen eyes and investigate the area.
14.
All right. There's nothing really of interest in the cart. You don't see any signs of struggle. There's no blood. There's no broken bits of anything. There's a few empty burlap sacks. Seems like they were holding maybe some food in there. You see a couple crumbs inside, but nothing serious. And you see tracks. You see 2 sets of tracks. Looks like booted feet heading off from this location to the northeast.
And can I ascertain that these tracks are 2 days old, or are they more recent?
They are faint. They are faint.
I give some quick words of condolences to the ox, but I leave it fashioned where it is, and I once more mount Cole and begin following the new set of tracks.
Okay. You take off after this new set of tracks. They start to trail along a pretty hazardous series of terrain. You can almost tell from where the ox was left, there seemed to be a very wide and broad path leading directly to the north, with some pretty well-worn ruts in there, like from a wagon wheel. These 2 sets of footprints are going off to the northeast, and it is a completely different story. This is a maddening jumble of shards of rock, of sudden, dangerous drops, and a lot more of these strange, twisted metal sculptures that look something akin to a tree is the closest thing you can ascribe to them. They are jutting straight out of the tortured black earth, and they are bronze and silver and gold and twisted all around like skeletal hands clawing at the night sky. It's a little eerie, and they get more and more dense as you make your way through. As you are moving through a particularly thick copse of these trees, the ground underneath your horse's feet starts to shudder violently, and I need you to roll me a reflex saving throw as the ground beneath you erupts.
That is a 19 plus 6, so a 25 for our math aficionados out there.
There you go. As you move through a particularly dense copse of these trees, the thick shadows they produce mask a vent in the tortured earth beneath you. The ground starts to shake, and there is a violent eruption of this horrific black sulfurous gas that belches with extreme heat up into the night sky. You are able to throw Cole to the side just as it starts to erupt, and you are able to keep your horse or yourself from being horribly burned by this gas, but the stench of it is absolutely horrific. Go ahead and roll me a fortitude saving throw as this horrific black gas sort of enters your lungs and you choke it down.
That is an 11 on my fortitude saving throw.
Yeah, you start to retch a little bit. You are...
Those 6 fingers of whiskey start to come back up.
Yeah, absolutely. Your nostrils burn with this gas in them, and your stomach churns powerfully. Yeah, your character is sickened. So you're going to take -2 to attack rolls, weapon damage, saving throws, skill checks, and ability checks. You're going to take -2 to everything. You are mildly ill from this horrific, nasty gas. So -2 on everything because you're sickened. So as this gas starts to reach your lungs, you start to retch, you feel ill, and the ground beneath your horse does not stop shaking, and you see that there's around you more of these vents that are starting to pipe this gas. Do you take the fuck off?
I most certainly do.
I'm going to need you to roll me a ride check to steer your mount through all of this horrific gas.
19.
Excellent. Nice. So you, even sickened as you are able to pull yourself together and snap your reins, and Cole, your trusty steed, charges through this strange alien copse of metallic trees and surges forward. You narrowly dodge these small pockets of gas that erupt from the ground beneath you, throwing sharp bits of rock and pumping more of this horrific sulfurous gas into the air. As you finish your run, you finally get to the other side of this thick copse of trees, and you see a towering building in the distance. It looms like an obelisk, and you're able to see that the tracks you were following lead in that direction.
Well, Cole, I'd wager that's our destination. Let's get on with it, shall we? And then I bury a boot heel in his flank.
He whinnies and rushes forward. You find, as you get closer to this building, that you're not really getting closer to this building. From where you were at the end of this weird metal forest, it looked like there was a gigantic building on the horizon, maybe 100 feet tall, and that you should be able to get to it pretty quickly. But you ride towards it for an hour, and then for another hour, And then for 2 more hours, and it's not getting any closer to you, the terrain around you seems to be moving. You seem to be moving forward, but the building itself does not seem to be getting any closer to you or your noble steed. The tracks you're following keep pointing in that direction, but this incredibly discombobulating feeling that you're not really making any progress overtakes you as you plod forward.
Stricken be damned, Cole. Have I ever told you how much I hate the Badlands? And then I reach into my pouch and pull out my cigarette case and snag one of my pre-rolled cigarettes. And I put it to my lips, and I take my matchbook, and I take an undue amount of time. I really sit with it. I survey the landscape. I look inside myself for a moment, and then I strike a match and light that cigarette.
All right, as you light that cigarette, the fire from your match seems to jump from your match onto the black earth on either side of your mount. 2 small flames jump, one on either side of you, to the ground. Each one of these flames jumps again forward, producing another flame on either side of you, and then another 6, another 8, and then till they create this row of tiny flames like fire beetles on the ground, glowing, creating this path before you. And then underneath these flames, the ground erupts again, and you see the skeletal, half-rotted remains of humans in ancient armor claw their way up from the ground and scream at you in a horrific chorus. Roll me a wisdom saving throw.
That is a 17.
You realize quickly that it is an illusion, but it is still terrifying and unnerving. Some last gasp of the tortured magic still flying around this blasted place.
I take an exceptionally long drag from my cigarette, and I exhale that smoke, and I say to myself, Gods be damned, I hate this place. Come on, Cole. Let's get where we're going and find this boy.
The phantasms of these corpses reach out to you and your horse as you pass by, but you've seen through this magic, and their clawed hands pass right through you, and they eventually disappear into wisps of arcana. And you continue on your way. The building does now seem to be getting closer, but it is far larger than you originally thought when you first spotted it. It gets larger and larger and larger in your view now as you approach it, until you realize that this building looming above you has got to be some 500 feet tall. It is a perfect stone cube that in the night looks pitch black and is intricately carved on every side with titanic depictions of men and women of all shapes and sizes battling creatures of all shapes and sizes. There seem to be heroes and villains and monsters from old legends just carved into every single side of this building. At the very, very top, you see that there are what look like holes in the side of it. At the very, very top, some several hundreds of feet up, that might be windows, might have been windows. And this thing absolutely looms above you. The tracks you're following, the two sets of tracks, curve around the building. You can see they're far fresher now as you get closer to it. They curve around the other side, and as you follow them, you see a jaw-dropping sight. The angle you came into this building on, you saw like what looked like a cube, but it was like a wedge, right? You came in looking at this corner of the building. As you make your way around, you see a crater the size of a small lake. It is absolutely enormous. It is on a scale with this gigantic square building, this yawning chasm of a crater that is so wide you can barely see the other side of it, and so deep that there is mist swirling around the bottom, concealing it from view. It is, it seems like it is fairly shallow relatively to its width. Like there is a pretty navigable gradient going down, but you also see that part of this giant hole in the ground incorporates some of this building. The entire backside of this enormous obelisk-like building is blown apart and collapsed into this crater. There's a steep mound of rubble that used to make up this once perfect cube that has since fallen into this enormous crater. It seems to take up half of its mass. This is the scene before you, and you see that the two sets of footprints go into this crater, and that there is a rope tied to a firm stone that is leading into the crater.
Cole, I'd ask you to survey the scene before you and bear witness to the marvels of mankind's peaks, as well as their majestic stupidity. I cannot believe that boy Roy climbed into this. And with that, I step off my horse, pat him firmly on the neck, and then start marching towards that rope.
Cole nudges you with, he like nuzzles you a little bit in the side of your head, and then he does an about face and seems to be purposefully scanning the area for threats as you grab onto the rope and make your descent. Roll me a climb check as you navigate this fairly steep.
14.
Gotcha. Yep, that'll be good. So you grab this rope and you start to make your descent. This is a incredibly large pit, and the rope extends for quite a long while. You can tell that someone had to splice just a very large amount of rope together in order to get all the way down here. And you realize as you start making your descent, this is going to take a while. You are climbing down for quite a bit. You're able to take your time and be careful about it. It's not a horrifically precipitous drop, but you can tell if you got started, you wouldn't stop for a while. You start picking your way down, and eventually, after an hour of just grueling climbing down this rope, you break through the mist that lays towards the bottom of this this pit, and you can start to see as you break through this layer of fog a bit of light about 100 feet down. You see a torch lit, and in the small ring of light from that torch at the bottom of this pit, you see 4 figures. One is bound on their side, a gag in their mouth that you know on sight to be Roy. He's been in the bar a couple times. You've heard his stories about the shit that he's found out there. And he seems worse for wear. Looks like whoever was with him has roughed him up pretty good. You can see that even from your very lofty perch that he's been through the ringer. He's got a black eye. There's some blood staining the front of his shirt. Looks like he got a pretty good gash on the head there. And the person holding the torch is a woman with short hair, done up in braids, and you see the glint of several earrings laced up one of her ears. And she is saying something that you can't quite hear from where you're at to 2 other forms that are in the shadows at the very edge of the torchlight, digging furiously through the rubble. There's a big pile of it. This seems to be the edge of the remnants of that large building, that obelisk carved with all those shapes that pours down into this crater. It seems like they're digging through the rubble of that building. That is what you see. They're about 100 feet from you at a down angle. You've just broken through this layer of fog that is hanging about here towards the bottom of this pit. What would you like to do?
Well, first and foremost, I take a quick drag from my flask, because if I'm going to march into battle, I'd not like to do so sober. And then I try and find a foot perch that I might find steady ground that I can slowly stalk towards them.
So you are going to sneak up closer to them. So roll me a move silently check as you try to stalk closer to your prey in this precarious situation.
14.
So you sneak closer, and you are able to do so fairly skillfully. You creep up upon this party, and as you get closer, you hear the woman holding the torch. You start to hear her speech. Dig faster, my pretties. Come on, quicker. We have to find it. Master wants us to find it. We have to find it. If this falls into the wrong hands, do you know what Master will do to us? We have to find it quickly, find it. You said it was here, she says, turning to Roy, who is bound on the ground. You said it was here. Did you lie to me? Did you lie to us? You know what happens to liars? And she violently kicks him in the stomach. He groans in pain and sort of rocks back and forth in his binds. Roll me another move silently check to close the distance.
Even better. That is a 17.
Okay, you start to creep closer, and the woman holding the torch is still just going off. She is babbling now at this point. We have to find it. It has to be here. We can't let anyone else have it. And she seems completely consumed by her rant and by just periodically kicking Roy and demanding if he lied to her, if this is where he found it. The two forms hauling through this stone, as you get closer, you see that they're not wearing clothes. And they're moving pretty enormous piles of stone at a pretty inhuman pace. And as you get closer, you're about 50 feet away at this point, your foot does crunch on some loose pebbles, and one of these forms hulking over the rubble and moving it aside jerks up, turns their head, and listens. Then scans the area as they turn into the torchlight to see. You can tell that it is may have once been human, but it is now a desiccated, horrifying semblance of what once was humanity. Sallow, dried skin clings tightly to bones. The hands have been left to rot until they're basically nothing more than claws, and a wide mouth full of jagged teeth yawns open as this thing's beady eyes scan the area around you. You've seen these things before from a distance, which is where you like to keep them. You know that these are ghouls, some of the undead that call the Badlands home. There are so many dead soldiers in the soil here that very often they spring back to life in some form or another. These two seem to be taking orders from the woman holding the torch. This thing seems to have heard you and scans around to spot you. Roll a hide check as it tries to get eyes on you.
So that's a 9.
Okay. You dive for cover, and this ghoul turns its head to try to see, and it locks its eyes directly where you're standing and says, "Mistress, we have company." In this horrible gasping sound, the woman holding the torch whips around from Roy and gazes about. Who's there? Who's out there? Show yourself! I'll flay the skin from your bones if you don't show yourself. Where are you? My pretties will find you. What do you do?
I stand up, casting aside any cover, and I slowly march towards her. Ma'am, monsters, how fare thee this evening?
Who are you?
Well, the name's Ruger, but most these days have taken to calling me Firehide. And who might you be?
As soon as you say Firehide, Roy on the ground sort of shifts and turns in his bonds to try to get a look at you, and his eyes go wide, and you can see that he starts like crying in relief that you're here. The lady says, "My name is unimportant. What is important is the mission. I am on a mission, and that mission has not been completed. I am surrounded by liars and fools and..."
Ghouls?
Yes, and ghouls. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Well, ma'am, you've mentioned your master a time or two now, and I'll ask you, if you'll not share your name, may I ask his or hers?
This woman reaches underneath the black vest that she is wearing, over her black leather pants and black boots. She reaches underneath her vest and pulls out a talisman. It's about as big around as a fist, simple, round, simple wooden circle, and she holds it up to the torchlight, and you see that there is a purple spiral shape painted onto this wooden talisman. She says, "I serve the darkness beyond the stars. I serve the blackness behind your eyelids. I serve the end of all things. I serve the stricken, Lord of the end, and I tire of your presence. Are you here to save the boy? Is that it?"
Well, ma'am, to be honest, yes, in fact, I am here to retrieve the boy. But now that I have stepped upon what I do here witness, I suspect that my mission has evolved. I cannot allow you to find whatever it is you're looking for, because I cannot allow the stricken to advance his goals.
Well, lawman, that's quite the speech. Let's see if you have the skills to back it up. Kill him, my pretties. Bring me his skin. I'll make boots out of it. And let's roll initiative.
13 on the initiative.
Okay, the ghoul's got this number. Okay, so the woman with the torch snatches her finger. This servant of the stricken snaps her finger, and one of these ghouls rushes you. It is all teeth and claws as it hurtles forward on its desiccated legs with a lupine ferocity and attempts to tear into you. And it misses completely. It rolled a critical 1, so it absolutely misses. It lunges towards you and tries to clamp its teeth down on your arm, but you just put out your axe handle, and it just bites down on your axe handle as well. It actually chips one of its teeth. The other one surges forward and tries to bite you as well. And does a 7 hit your armor class?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay. So yeah, 2 of these ghouls rush forward, mouths agape, their jagged teeth searching for your tender skin, and they both bite down one of them bites down on your axe handle, the other one you're able to fend off with your elbow as it tries to get a piece of you. It is now your turn. Ruger Firehide, you are standing in front of 2 ghouls who are trying to eviscerate you. What would you like to do?
I would like to, with battle axe in one hand and hand axe in the other, sink a pair of attacks into a singular ghoul.
So go ahead and roll your first attack roll.
20 on the die.
Excellent, solid hit, and then go ahead and roll your second attack.
19.
Oh, both solid blows. Excellently done. Let's get the damage up on that. You, with an axe in each hand, wave them in a flurry and sink both of them deeply into the desiccated flesh of this ghoul. What do we got for damage?
It is middling, if I'm honest. So in total, with both attacks, you're looking at 12 points of damage.
Oh my goodness, that is a dead ghoul.
Hot damn.
How do you kill it?
I sink my battle axe firmly into its neck, primarily severing it, and then with an offhand stroke sideways, I lop its head clean off.
Fantastic. Both of these ghouls rushed you and tried to bite you. You fended off both of their attacks, and with 2 axes, lop off the head of one of them. The woman holding the torch, the servant of the stricken, looks a little taken aback. She's like, "You've killed my babies! How dare you! If they can't skin you, then I will. Or, better yet, perhaps your charge. And she reaches down and grabs Roy and kind of hauls him up onto his feet. And she holds the torch very close to his face.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like, if you don't step back, the boy's going to get it. It is the ghoul's turn. So, this ghoul that is in front of you saw that you killed his brother, and it is going to try to bite and slash your face. Does a 16 hit your armor class, Ruger Firehide?
Armor class is 17, thanks to the offhanded defensive feat.
Oh, fantastic. That's beautiful. So this ghoul lunges at you and tries to give you everything it's got. It tries to snap at you with its powerful jaws. It brings in both claws to slash at your guts, and you are able to expertly fend it off with the biting sting of your twin axes. You turn away its fangs and both of its claws, completely avoiding any harm. It is now your turn. There's a ghoul in front of you trying to eat you. There's a woman 15 feet from you holding a torch up to Roy's head.
Yeah, the immediate threat is in fact the undead. Even if I were to disarm her, it is a fucking ghoul. It's not gonna stop. So I am going to unleash another flurry of two-handed attacks and hope to fell this disgusting undead beast. So with my primary, that is an 18 to hit.
That is going to be a hit.
And I'm going to go ahead and roll the attack roll for my hand axe as well. That is a 13.
13 is a hit.
Hey. Okay. That's better than last time. So that is 8 plus 6. 14 points of damage.
Oh, that is another dead ghoul. How do you kill this one?
I cut horizontally with my offhand across its belly, spilling its intestines across the ground, and as it looks down befuddled, I slam my battle axe firmly into its skull, damn near cutting it in twain.
It collapses in a pile of its own viscera, thumping down wetly onto the ground next to its compatriot. Both the ghouls have been destroyed, and you with not a scratch on you. Nicely done. So both these ghouls lunge at you, and you handily dispatch them. The woman with the torch is still holding Roy some 15 feet from you. She says, "You bastard! You killed my babies! Look. I have to find this treasure, okay? My master has charged me with finding this treasure. The treasure that this boy," she says, and shakes Roy violently, holding the torch a little closer to his head, "said was out here. If it lands into the wrong hands, if the bards of Ever Spring get it, then our plans are in jeopardy. This is an important mission. I cannot fail it. Do you know what they do if we fail?" she says, and she jostles Roy again. "Listen to me. If you don't help me find this treasure, then this boy here will have to be taken back in a sack. Now what do you say, lawman?"
Well, ma'am, I wish I could address you by your namesake, but you have chosen to withhold it, so I cannot extend to you that courtesy. But instead, I will extend to you a question. Do you mean to tell me that the Stricken has actively sent you to seek out whatever treasure it is that you think is buried in this building?
The Stricken asks for nothing. The The stricken is the end. The stricken is darkness. The Lord Deceiver asks, and we obey. The Lord Deceiver is the voice of the stricken here on the island. The Lord Deceiver is the guiding beacon, the blackness that shows the way. She is the truth and the lie. The Lord Deceiver sent me here, and if I fail, more will follow. They will not stop until it is retrieved. If it is even here in the first place.
And what is it that you seek, ma'am? This boy here is nothing but a scrapper. He knows little and less, and 2 drinks in is known for tall tales. What you seek is likely not here, but what is it that you hope to find out here in this God's forsaken place?
I can't tell you that. You do you think I'm a fool? I'll tell you, you'll tell the bards will come and get it, and then all of our plans will be ruined. I can't tell you that, but you'll help me find it. You'll help me find it, won't you? And she starts to hold this torch closer to
I really, really, really don't like that at all.
yeah.
So is there an...
It is your turn. What would you like to do?
You said...
She is poised to burn this boy's face.
And she is 15 feet away from me?
She is 15 feet away from you. What would you like to do?
I would like to take a 5-foot step forward, which puts me within a 10-foot range, which allows me to hit that bitch in the chest with my throwing axe, taking advantage of my point-blank shot feat. So I am going...
Oh, no shit, you got point-blank shot too? That's
Yeah.
quite a build you got there.
2-weapon defense, point-blank shot, and improved unarmed strike, because I like to punch a motherfucker, too.
That's an excellent selection.
So I am going to roll my throwing axe, adding in the +1 to my attack and damage for point-blank shot. And that is a 19 on my attack roll.
You know, that is a difficult shot to make, considering that she's holding a boy, but with a 19, yeah. You roll damage. Roll damage for throwing axe. You hit this woman.
Right, so that is a 3 + 1 + 1, which means 5 points of damage from the throwing axe.
Fantastic. This woman is holding a torch to Roy's face. The sweat rolling down his forehead is starting to sizzle and evaporate as it rolls down his face. The very tips of his hair are starting to singe as she holds this burning brand in front of him. And you, seeing this, take a quick step forward and hurl your throwing axe, which tumbles through the air and embeds itself deep into her shoulder, snapping her collarbone and throwing her backwards. The torch flies out of her hand. Roy tumbles out of her grasp, and she falls back a step. It is now her turn. She screams in pain, "You bastard! This won't be the end! You may kill me, but they'll send more! The stricken, the Church of the Stricken will come. They'll fall on you. Like a black rain, they'll fall on you. The Seekers of the Void, the Knights of the Pyre, they'll burn everything. Everything you love will die."
Did you say Knights of the Pyre? What do they have to do with any of this?
They're all fingers of the same hand. All serve the Lord Deceiver. I die, but others will take my place. The void is all. The void is all. The void is dull. And she starts foaming at the mouth and sort of convulsing there on the ground. What do you do?
I drop my axes where they stand and rush forward to her, cradling her body as she, I assume, convulses.
Yeah, she is shaking violently, and blood's pouring out of the wound from the throwing axe. But she seems to be suffering from some other malady. She's convulsing and foaming at the mouth. Her eyes are rolling in the back of her head. If you'd like to roll
A heal check, perhaps?
a heal check, yeah.
I would love to attempt to restore her from whatever is self-inflicted here. Ooh, that's not so good. That is a 9 on my heal check.
Okay, you can tell because it's fairly obvious that she has poisoned herself in order to escape interrogation, it would seem, but you do not have the wherewithal or the materials necessary to counteract whatever she's put in her system. And as you look on, she tries to rave through the foam and spittle that is coming up out of her mouth, and eventually, after a few more seconds, she passes and goes still, sagging in your arms. The symbol of the stricken around her neck splayed out to the side. Roy squirms in his bonds and screams through his gag.
First and foremost, I kick a little bit of dirt on her torch, hopefully extinguishing it.
You do extinguish your torch and put your whole group in darkness.
That's fine. I prefer that over the alternative. So I grope forward and pull my throwing axe out of the shoulder, out of the corpse.
Yep.
I grasp with my hands in the darkness until I find her head. Once I do so, I take said throwing axe and sever off the ear that has the earrings in it. And I take that ear and stuff it into my satchel.
Makes sense.
And then I slowly shamble over towards the grunts and groans that are Roy. Do I find him?
Yeah, for sure.
I grope.
Hard to miss.
I grope until I find the bindings that have him detained, and I use my axe to cut them.
As soon as you cut his hands free, his hands flash up to the gag on his mouth, and he says, "Firehide, is that you? Oh God! Oh, blessed Narrativa, Firehide! I can't believe you found me. I thought I was gonna die."
Damn it, Roy! I've told you, and I've told you again. The Badlands are no place for you. This is a nefarious place with nothing but ill intent for those living who walk upon it. Now I understand your mother is a scrapper, but damn it, Roy, you do not have what it takes to hang about these parts. Do you hear me?
You don't know what it's like. You're strong. You got your weapons, and you save people. We're out here living on the edge. We're trying to get by. I found something that could change our lives. I didn't think it would come to this. I didn't think anyone else would want it this bad. I didn't think this was gonna happen.
What did you find out here, Roy? What is it that garnered the attention of the damn stricken?
It's... Give me a light. Give me a light. I'll show you where it is.
Now, Roy, you know how I feel about fire. I can give you this torch, but you're on your own for lighting it. And I reach about the ground, groping in darkness until I find the recently extinguished torch and hand it to Roy.
He takes it and he fumbles around for a flint and steel. You know, it'd be funny if it weren't so sad. She held that torch up to you. That may have been the end of it, huh? And he lights the torch up. He holds it far away from you at arm's length.
I still reflexively take a step back when he lights it.
Yeah.
And I say, Roy, there's nothing funny about what you just suggested. I have no interest in the flames. You understand me?
I understand just fine, Firehide. I understand. Look. I came out here because I found this. All right. He goes over to a particularly large slab of rubble that seems to be leading up this pile of tumbled stones that used to belong to that enormous building you saw feeding in to this crater. It's, some 20 feet across, this gigantic slab of stone, and there seems to be a small gathering of smaller rocks underneath it, well to the side of where the ghouls were digging. And he takes a few stones out of the way. I came down here about a week ago. I found this. As soon as I did, damn ghouls came out. I stashed it. And I ran. I thought if I had some help, I could come back here and get it. I thought she was going to help. My mom always said I was too trusting, but I guess I paid for it this time. He takes a couple stones away. I point her in the wrong direction. She was crazy trying to get this thing. I guess it's more valuable than I thought. I tried to point her in the wrong direction, buy it some time. Thinking about it now, I don't know what I was thinking. If she hadn't found it, I just would have died, I guess. Well, anyway, takes another rock out of the way, and he pulls out one of the strangest things you've ever seen. It looks like a human skull, except it's made entirely out of metal, and half of it is missing. He pulls it out gingerly in two hands, and it's made of this bright, shining, brass-like metal. There's an eye socket, there's part of a nose, the upper half of a jaw, and a bit of the hemisphere of a skull, but half of it is completely missing. And inside of it is some of the most elaborate clockwork you've ever seen. Gears and cogs, flywheels and springs, some of them damaged, some of them rusted, but overall in pretty solid shape. And that's what he pulls out of this little alcove he's made here. This is what I found. Now they got these things called golems in the College of Everspring. Ma used to be a turnkey up there. She that's why she knows about traps and all this technology. I heard about golems. I thought this might be a part of one, and well, shoot, Mr. Firehide, if we could find a golem or even part of one, we could sell this for more money than we'd ever done seen. Maybe Ma could get back in with the turnkeys. We could get back to Everspring. I don't know. It seemed too good a chance to pass up. Figure we get enough money, maybe get William some decent legs. It seemed worth it.
By Narrativa, boy. William has legs just fine. And more importantly, William has a beating heart for you. And you would risk your life over a half-baked sand-soaked skull out here in the heart of the Badlands? What were you thinking, Roy?
I just thought I could make our lives better. I mean, isn't that the point? Being out here, combing over all this ruin, making some sort of meaning out of all this death and destruction, finding some way to make any of it worth it, any of this worth it. I mean, goddamn, Firehide, we're out here in the mess. Just trying to find a way out.
I understand, Roy. But at the end of the day, coin is coin and love is love. And you have a man that cares about you. And you have a mother that, God rest her soul, crossbows aside, cares about you too. And you need to put these boyish, fanciful delights aside and return to Picker's Run and find you some decent work that ain't gonna put you in the line of death every damn day. 'Cause Firehide ain't always gonna be here to save you. You understand? Are you listening, boy?
Roy looks a little abashed and he looks down at the iron band around his finger and turns it slightly, toying with it. William send you out here after me?
William was damn near in tears. That man loves you, and God damn it, I don't know why, given how silly you are from time to time. What is this? Thrice now I done saved you, Roy? Come on.
Now the second time didn't count because you were just out here anyway. That wasn't a job. That was just happen. You know what? All right, look. You're right. Obviously, this is too much for a simple man like me to look after. If people like her want it, if the stricken wants it, I don't. So here, congratulations, your payment for saving my life again. And he thrusts this metal skull at you.
I take it gingerly, look at it with a bemused, if not completely misunderstand look. I don't know what the hell this is. And I stuff it in my satchel and I turn to Roy and I say, listen, Roy, I understand your desire to provide for your family. I do. I get it. It's hard out here. The Badlands are a dangerous place, much less Picker's Run, which attracts all kinds of nefarious folk. I get it. You need to find some way to make coin. But this is not the right way, Roy. This life does not suit you. And I'll ask you, as I've asked you before, can you please set aside these fancies of the scrapper life and find some other form of work? Can you please?
I will promise you that I will not take my life so lightly in the future. And I will find a safer way to make a living. Look, trust me, Mr. Firehide, beside anything else, I do not relish the thought of getting my ass beat all up and down the Badlands again. So this has been educational. I'll say that.
Well, let's get you back to your kinfolk. Your ox is a few hours back. We can get your cart out of the Badlands. We can get your mama's place back by morning. And then you, sir, need to take that boy William in a loving embrace and take stock of what you have in your life. It's not always about the promise of tomorrow, but about appreciation of what you have today. Take it from me, okay? I've lost plenty, and I did not appreciate it when I have it. You do not follow in my footsteps, Roy. You hear me?
I hear you, Mr. Firehide. I hear you. All right. With that, Roy follows you up the rope. It's slow going. He's had a rough way of it. But nothing worse than some bruised ribs and a, little little cut on his head, black eye, that sort of thing. But you're able to get him all the way up the rope, back to your horse, and you navigate the dangers of the Badlands on the way back to his cart. The stars are still flickering, but they haven't moved at all. Neither has the moon at all the entire time you've been in the Badlands. And eventually you get back to his cart and his ox, load him up onto it, and you folks ride back south to Tessa's scrapyard. And as soon as it's within sight, Roy jumps out of his cart, rushes up to the front door, slams on it. Ma, William, I'm back. The door flies open, and Tess wraps her arms around her son, and William walks his way over and throws his arms around Roy in that loving embrace that you referenced earlier. Tess comes out and says, Firehide by Narrativa. Where'd you find him? Just over the next rise? I can't believe you're back so fast. What? We should get a discount on this one. Where was he? Behind that tree? You've been gone but 2 hours.
Well, you know as good as I do that the Badlands are a fickle and mysterious place. Your 2 hours was far longer than that for me and mine, okay? But know this, I do not require recompense from you, okay? I have been paid for my services, and know that I take joy in the fact that your boy has been restored to you and yours. That's all I need.
Well, Mr. Firehide, once again, I cannot articulate enough how much I appreciate you bringing my boy back to me. If I may, what did he pay you with? She gets a greedy glint to her eye, and she starts adjusting some dials on the sides of her weird spectacles.
Now, Tess, I'll show you. But understand that there is no bargaining to be taking place here, okay? I am walking away with this as it has been gifted to me. Do you understand, Tess? Do you hear the words that I am saying to you?
Firehide, I do not want to lay claim to your payment, all right? My boy's home, that's all I want. But you know as good as I that you have no idea what the fuck any of this stuff is. So, do you want to know what you've been paid with, or did he just give you a sack of gold coins?
I wish he'd give me gold coins. That is a form of payment I do understand. But Tess, you're right. I know you're right. So here, feast your peepers upon this. And I reach into my satchel, pull out that weird-ass skull thing you gave me, and I fork it over to her.
So you hand her this weird artifact, this metallic half of a skull, this strange clockwork skull, and she holds it in her hands, and her eyes go wide as dinner plates immediately. She turns it over a million times. She adjusts some dials on her spectacles, which zoom in and out, and some telescopic lenses come down, some magnifying lenses flip up and down, and she just turns it over and over, gazing at it. My word. He actually found one. Can't believe it.
Found one what, Tess?
There's a big old building out there. It's a bit farther than I've ever been willing to go, but it's huge. It's carved with all kinds of fancy figures all over it. It's big as a mountain. Perfectly square, right?
I'm familiar with the place that you're describing.
You know, stories say that there used to be buildings that big, full of books and such, full of scrolls, full of all kinds of stuff with writing just all over it.
You mean words like written before the glyph purge?
That's right. They used to be so big that they'd have golems tend to all the books. Did you find this outside of that big old building out there?
Well, ma'am, I found no such. It was your boy who found it, but yes, we were in a crater just outside that big building, just as you described.
She takes a deep breath, holds it for a second, and lets out a long, slow sigh. And she delicately hands this strange artifact back to you, this metallic half skull full of clockwork, and she says, Mr. Firehide, I suggest you get this into the hands of a bard, the next one you see. This might be important.
Well, ma'am, there is little doubt of its importance. Your boy Roy, he stepped on the wrong side of an agent of the stricken.
What?
That woman, that crazy woman, she was an agent, as I do describe. So, I agree with your assessment. While I do appreciate the payment that I have received, I do not wish to hold on to this. And if you say the bards might have answers or might have understanding of what this is, then to the bards I will give it.
Well, I hope that's the case, Firehide. I tell you what, before you go on back out into the night, why don't you come on in, take your rest, and you can leave in the morning.
That sounds like a marvelous idea. But ma'am, I will ask you for two things. I will take a warm meal and 2 fingers of whiskey. Can you oblige?
I think I can.
And with that, I step into her trap-laden household.
Yeah, you guys have a good night. It's William does not let go of Roy for the entirety of the evening, and the smile on his face is nearly payment enough on its own, I suspect. Tess is her crotchety, crankety old self and spends the entire time like filing down springs for some new trap that she's working on. And the night passes with a lot of joy and no mention of the artifact now in your possession. Then you sleep soundly after a good night's work, and the next day dawns. There is a knock at the door very, very early. And Tess, crotchety, as always, gets up, goes down the stairs, and goes to open it. And you hear from the door, "Oh, hello, madam. It's come to my understanding that you might have something of interest. My name is Sebastian Weaver, Bard Extraordinaire of the College of Everspring. I think you and I have something to discuss."
With that, I rise from my bed, strap my axes to my hips and backside, and stroll out into the living room.
You see a diminutive gnome with a shock of white hair, a crooked beak of a nose, and brilliant blue eyes, who is trailed by the strangest assortment of people you've seen in a long while. There's a half-orc with a white painted face with a skull, a brawny human man with with an enormous hammer strapped to his back, and an elven woman with a bow and a very large cat, all standing out on Tessa's front porch. And she says, "Well, what do you want?" And that's where we'll end. Hey there, dear listeners. It's Sam, your Dungeon Master, thanking you once again for listening to Challenge Rating 0. You've just listened to the prologue or introductory episode for Ruger Firehide, the character played by Alex. This makes it official. Alex is going to be a regular member of the cast. Ruger Firehide has officially joined our adventure for the foreseeable future. We've been playing Dungeons & Dragons with Alex for a very long time. Some of you remember him from the holiday episode we recorded and the episode you heard just prior to this one, no doubt. He's a great role player, a great friend of ours, and we look very much forward to having him on the show. A couple of things to plug, as always, here at the end of the show. If you would like to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at challenge_ZER, the letter O. You can find Beth at Dragon, the letter N, Distress. Brian, you can find at Dalabrack, DALABRACK. You can find Alex at Alex Klenke, KLENK. You can find me at Horace Kemp 3, HORUSKEMP 3. If you'd like to reach out to the show, send us an As the Dice Turns question, or just tell us how you like it, give us any critiques or ideas, you can email us at challengerating0@gmail.com. That's CHALLENGERATINGZER, the letter O, @gmail.com. Music for our program is provided by the Harp Wolf, Danielle Williams. She has an album on Bandcamp called Why Are We Surprised When Seasons Change? You should check it out. It's a real barn burner. You can find her work at danielletaylorharp.bandcamp.com. Also, additional music for the show provided by Justin Ra, another great local artist. You can find him on Facebook at Justin Ra Music. He has an album out called Age of the Spirit, which should be streaming pretty much anywhere albums be streaming. Thank you very much for listening to the show. We hope to continue our what should be regular scheduling by now, and we'll see you next time.